Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash. I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, just because I'm away on a sabbatical, staying in the Dutch city of Maastricht for a little while, doesn't mean to say I can't help you with some of your questions. And I have received a question which I'm going to answer right now. And this question comes from a gentleman called Alexander, who says to me, I have an issue. In my signature scent for many years, which is called Dana, English leather, is being discontinued, possibly, and it's getting harder and harder to find and get hold of. Do you have any tips or tricks on how to get hold of it? And should I get a new signature scent and try to find something new? Well, it's a great question, Alexander, and one which I think many of us will find ourselves facing at some point or another, because quite often we get attached to a fragrance, as we call it, a signature scent, at some point in our lives, and then at some later point we find aghast that the manufacturer has either changed the formulation and the fragrance doesn't smell like itself anymore, or they discontinue it altogether. I've had that a few times. I rather liked, there was a fragrance called Jazz, I think it was by Givenchy, which I really loved. Can't find it anymore. It's just one of those things. So, first of all, signature scents. Let's just reflect on what you're talking about for a moment. Signature scents are hugely valuable for us as individuals because in just exactly the same way as our clothing reflects something of our personality to the world in visual format, our fragrance, our signature scent, tells people about us through their olfactory sense, the number one nostril. So it's, I think, a missed opportunity if we fail to use a signature scent as we go through life. And it's a great way of making a first impression on the nose of somebody new. And it speaks volumes about you, I think. You know, when I don't know if you catch the tube in London, you sit next to a guy who doesn't smell particularly pleasant, that will leave a strong impression on you. If you sit next to somebody who has a beautiful masculine fragrance or whatever signature scent they choose, it's a definite positive in my opinion. And that's how I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered as the person who smells good. So, there are a myriad of options out there. How do you find the signature scent or a new signature scent if the one which you're currently using is coming to discontinuance? Firstly, I'll answer that bit of your question. When looking for discontinued fragrances, the best thing to do, I personally use eBay. You will find fragrances being relisted on there, or even people selling half a bottle. You know, and they can be incredibly cheaper. So definitely look down that avenue and other platforms such as eBay, but give it a go. So, first of all, my first tip for you is when you're looking for a signature fragrance, understand what your preferences are. Now, we've all got a different leaning when it comes to the fragrances that we like. We might like masculine fragrances, which are quite heavy and dense. So you will be naturally drawn to those type of fragrances, like Dracar Noir, Coram, and many of the much more expensive ones. Or you might like lighter, more citrus-oriented fragrances, which tend to be favoured more in the summer, but can be worn at any time. I particularly like Bleu by Chanel. Good all-year fragrance, very well received by everybody. It's a fragrance which universally is loved. Same with the original Allure by Chanel, also very, very good, solid performer at a very modest price. But find out what you like, right? Find out what you like. If you know somebody in your life who you've, encountered and you notice they've got a wonderful fragrance about them, ask them. First of all, it's nice to compliment somebody if they've gone to the effort of wearing a fragrance, but secondly, they can give you some tips and ideas. Well, I wear X, Y, or Z, and you think, oh, I really like that one, I'm going to give it a try. Now, given nobody's skin chemistry is the same as anybody else's, so that fragrance you're smelling on that person may be entirely different on you, but give it a try. It might work for you. Seek recommendations, ask people, see what's out there. Do all the things that you can do. Go to department stores. There's a huge department store here in Maastricht, which I was in the other day, and it's got a fabulous fragrance department. All of the fragrances from Creed right down to, Guerlain, Dior, Chanel, they're all there. Everything, all of their main players. Go through them all, see what you're attracted to, and then you can find yourself fine-tuning that special fragrance that you think is going to work for you. Now, my second tip for you when finding a signature fragrance is, first thing, forget the marketing and the advertising, because all of these big brands, and I've mentioned them already, you know, the Dior's, the Chanel's, all the big brand fragrance houses, they hump fortunes into their advertising budgets. And you'll find movie stars advertising them. Of course, famously, you got Johnny Depp, who advertises Sauvage by Dior, and numerous other ones as well. Not only that, but they integrate really well-known music into those commercials so that they are immediately attractive to us with attractive personalities, music we're familiar with, and it makes us feel as if we want to buy that fragrance even before we've ever put the Mark I human nostril anywhere near it. That is a mug's game. You should never buy a fragrance without testing it. Always allow yourself to, you know, live with something for a little while. If at all possible, buy some of the samples, test them. Now, my next tip for you in choosing that signature fragrance is think about the life that you are leading. Because if you really like super dense, heavy, masculine fragrances, and you are working in a very small, intimate office with just 1 or 2 people, you have to be very careful about wearing fragrances like that. It could alienate you from your co-workers, because who wants to sit there with a hyper-powerful, you know, fragrance emitting from you all day long? You might not notice it. You might have gone nose blind, but those around you are not going to thank you. They're going to end up with headaches and the like. You might have experienced it yourself, having been sat next to somebody on a train or a bus or an aeroplane who's got a super strong cologne on, and it can really rub you up the wrong way. So think about your life and how you're going to wear that fragrance before you ever start buying anything. And, you know, keep in mind that if you are choosing a signature scent, this is something you are going to wear day after day after day. So make sure you get it right and don't become the enemy or the nose enemy of the people in your close proximity. Now, my fourth tip is test before you invest, right? Fragrance is an expensive business these days. Something by Chanel, for instance, is up around £100, Dior, Guerlain, maybe even over £100. And that's before you start getting into the niche world of, you know, Tom Ford and Creed, where they're in multiples of hundreds of pounds. And you can keep going upwards, depending on how much money you want to spend. So make sure this is something which is really going to work for you. And in so doing, I recommend living with a fragrance for a little while before you put the big money into it. As I said, you never buy blind, you never try, you never buy without trying. But if you can, you know, most companies provide this now, fragrance houses, they'll send small testers to you. They might charge a few pounds, you might get 5mm, 10mm, you can buy them from third-party providers who actually sell well-known fragrances in small amounts. But buy one of those first and live with it for a few days, because your chemistry on the skin is going to make that fragrance smell different on you as it does to anybody else. I'll give an example how I did this the other day. I was in London and I called into Floris in Jermyn Street, and they had a new product out called Wild. And this is a new fragrance they've released for the summer of 2024. I tried it in the store, I sprayed it on a card first of all, smelled it, sprayed it on my wrist, walked out to the store, kept smelling it throughout the day, seeing how that fragrance was settling down. I wasn't sure about it. I went back the following day, because I was in London for a couple of days. I did the same thing. I tried the fragrance again on my wrist, kept smelling it throughout the day. Initially, I was umming and ahhing. I was thinking about buying it. But after 2 days of living with that fragrance, I decided it wasn't for me. Now, that fragrance was £180 as well, by the way. So if I had splurged at my first instance of trying it, saying, oh, I rather like this, 2 days after buying it, I would have been dissatisfied, because having lived with the fragrance for a couple of days, I didn't like it. Or I didn't like it enough to spend that sort of money on it, shall I say. And I wouldn't say I didn't like it, it just wasn't something I wanted as a signature fragrance. Make sure you'll do the same. Send off for those samples, live with it for a few days. Don't just go into a store, smell it once and buy it. It's a considered investment. Make sure you're making the right investment. Now, my fifth tip for you is simply to trust your instincts. It doesn't matter what anybody else says to you. If you try a fragrance on and somebody comes, oh, that smells wonderful, I love that on you. But to you yourself, you're not really, it doesn't work. It's not for you. That is your instinct telling you this isn't right for you. It doesn't matter if somebody says to you, you're going to love this one, I recommend this for you, or somebody gives you something as a gift and you feel compelled to wear it. If it's against your instinct, it's not right for you. Your instinct is something which you should trust and you should listen to. When you put on a fragrance, which is going to be a signature fragrance, it should be something which elevates your mood. It lifts you as a person, makes you feel a little more confident, boosts your self-esteem. That's really the value of a signature fragrance. And if you don't feel like that when you try that fragrance on, and when you've tried it for a few days, as I say, lived with it for a little while, it's not for you. Your instinct will let you know when you find that fragrance which works for you, because you get sparks, don't you? You get an electricity. I remember the first time as a young fellow, I tried on Kouros by Yves Saint Laurent. It seems so dated and so old-fashioned now. But way back then, in the, God, let me think, the late 1980s, when I tried it, there was electricity when I first smelled it, and it became my signature fragrance for a few years. And I loved it, and I still have a bottle in my collection now. But my tastes have changed a little as I've grown older. The old olfactory senses is on an evolutionary journey too with the rest of us. So now I prefer other things. But make sure you listen to your instincts and you buy the thing which your mind tells you works for you. So there we go, Alexander. I hope that was of some use for you today. Buying a signature fragrance is a deeply personal thing. And if you apply some of those tips which I've suggested today, I hope you'll be able to find something which can adequately replace that English leather for you. Now, knowing English leather as I do, it's quite a strong, powerful fragrance. I think you're going to lean more in that direction, you know, down towards the Corums and the Dracanuars. But let me know how you get on. I'd love to hear what you plump for in the end, and have fun on that journey finding it. So until the next time, take care, and I will see you again very soon. And don't forget, if you want to support the channel, you can drop me a comment, drop me an email, ask me a question like Alexander did. You can even support the channel by buying me a coffee and becoming a patron. Patrons get extra videos as well. And you can find out how to get involved with that in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care, and I'll see you again very soon.